And here we go. We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Rolling up. Roger, roll, Atlantis.
Water towers fly! Yes!
Tango down to nominal.
Flight down to SC off. Bring in SC off. Off. It's orange!
R45! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage.
Put that in the big bag, 343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
The methane would be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You good? We don't need any more of these.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another NSF live stream from right here on the Space Coast of Florida. You are currently taking a live look over at Launch Complex 39A, where SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket is poised and ready to launch the Starlink 6-84 mission, hopefully in just under 1 hour's time. I'm seeing a bunch of 5x5s in chat, y'all. It looks like we are off to a great start on this very early morning on the Space Coast, it has to be said. But as per usual, even though it is just before 4 a.m. local time here on the east coast of Florida, we also have out in the field with us D. D, how you doing?
I am doing really well. It is always a good day when you see a rocket on the pad getting ready to launch. So it is a good day today.
Indeed it is, and 39A is always a treat, especially even for a Starlink mission. But also, joining us for some additional commentary is Mr. Cody Utzler. Cody, how you doing?
I'm doing good. You know, I got my coffee here to wake me up this evening/morning, and I'm excited to see a Starlink mission out of 39A here. Pretty exciting.
Absolutely. Yeah, given the time where it is, I mean, anywhere in the US right now, you're like on the fine line of is it still nighttime? Is it daytime? Is it like it's one of the worst hours of the morning to be up here, at least here in Florida. But the morning is always made better when Falcon 9 is vertical over at 39A. But y'all, just as a reminder, if you have any questions that you would like answered throughout the broadcast, please feel free to tag us at NASASpaceflight in chat, and we will get to your questions as soon as we can. Okay, well, to start things off, I believe the first order of business is, well, talking about what is launching today. As we said earlier, this is the Starlink Group 6-84 mission, so it is part of the Group 6 shell in the Starlink constellation. It is currently holding, inside those two mega payload fairings, 29 Starlink V2 mini satellites, and that is a new mass record or payload record for the Starlink V2 minis in the Group 6 constellation and just for Starlink in general. That is a record high number of satellites. And the Falcon 9 will be heading southeast today once it gets off the launch pad on a 43-degree orbital inclination, heading just north of the Bahamas, and more specifically, a 274 by 283 kilometer altitude. And we can talk more about that payload in a bit. As you can see on the countdown clock right now, we are just over T-minus 52 minutes, and that is counting down to a T0 of 4:54 a.m. Eastern Time here on the east coast of Florida. And the window is open. Well, window should open here in just about 40-ish minutes at 4:48 a.m. and extends to 8:48 a.m. as well, both on Eastern Time. Cody, which Falcon 9 booster is currently on the docket over at 39A?
Yep. So the booster on the docket for today is booster 1078. This will be the 20th flight for this booster. Pretty cool to see there. This booster started its life by flying Crew 6 in March of 2023. And then it flew a couple of Starlinks. Some other notable payloads it's flown is O3B mPOWER 3 and 4, USSF 124, and Bluebird Block 1 1 through 5, as well as 15 other Starlink missions there. Downrange, we have a shortfall gravitas, about 595 kilometers downrange, which is about 370 miles for that booster recovery. And then further downrange, at about 626 kilometers, we have Doug standing by for that fairing recovery there.
Indeed. And as we mentioned earlier, Falcon 9 is launching from historic Launch Complex 39A here at the Kennedy Space Center. This morning's mission will mark the 45th launch of the year for SpaceX, the 2nd of May, the 110th from LC-39A, and the 254th dedicated to the Starlink constellation. So while it may seem like it's your ordinary Starlink, as Sawyer likes to say, it ain't, and especially with that record payload. But before we get too far into that, I want to first ask Dee about the weather and how that may play a factor into this morning's window. Dee, how's the weather looking?
Well, it's not too bad, but we have had some glorious launches recently, and it's definitely not as good as those. We are currently, according to the 45th Weather Squadron, which puts together the weather predictions for all of these, we're going to have between a 40 and 50% chance of violating the weather constraints for the launch this morning. So the best odds are at the beginning of the window when it's a 40% chance of violation, and that decreases a bit to 50%. Now, the concerns for tonight are all cloud-based. So it's the anvil clouds rule, the cumulus cloud rule, and the thick cloud layers rule, which I will say, as I was driving in here, there was fog, and there was certainly a bit of precipitation and clouds in the sky. It's a bit harder to see them now. There are plenty of spots of clear sky, so there's a good chance we get lucky, but there's nothing we can really do but wait and see.
Yeah, and SpaceX has actually been on a roll recently. I mean, I don't want to impart any commentator's curse here, but SpaceX has actually been on a roll recently in launching the Starlink, the most recent Starlink missions at the opening of their respective windows. And that is not something even, Dee, I'm sure you can recall this, even upwards of a year ago, where it was not an uncommon occurrence to slip all the way to either the middle or even the very end of the window very early on when we get here to set up. So hopefully they can get Carson saying this mission is now cursed. It's not. We're not there yet. I canceled that out. It's fine. But yeah, hopefully we can get Falcon 9 off the ground at the opening of the window, and we can get home and get some rest later on tonight, because it has been a long night, folks. Okay, before we get too deep into what else we can talk about, I want to hit some support really quick and knock that out of the way. Even before we went live, we had a lot of support coming in, and starting out with Christopher Campbell, first becoming a PadRat member and then upgrading to a Capcom member. That is huge. That is an enormous amount of support. So Christopher, thank you very much. 21 Volts Gaming also becoming a Capcom member as well, followed by Andrew Kutsick becoming a PadRat member, and then we have a super chat from Westy III, a £5 super chat. Happy Star Wars Day to the best internet community out there. May the 4th be with you always. You know, honestly, I'm not gonna lie. I kind of before that super chat, I kind of forgot it was Star Wars Day. But may the 4th be with you all if you celebrate. It is a great day, and we might be getting a lightsaber-looking figure flying off a launch pad in just about 47 minutes time. We'll see. I don't want to jinx it, but I've probably already done that. But let's move on anyway. Wibble Baggins, a name that we see here pretty often, gifting 1 Red Team membership. Also followed by Nibbles, also gifting 1 Red Team membership to a lucky viewer. And then followed by that, we have a Rocket Prophet with 10 gifted Red Team memberships to 10 lucky viewers. Y'all, just as a reminder, some of the best ways that you can support us here at NSF are via our YouTube memberships, where you can get access Capcom and above. Well, with the Capcom membership and above, get you full Discord access, at least, to talk with the NSF team, and also a bunch of like-minded rocket and spaceflight nerds to talk about spaceflight stuff, and also some not-so-spaceflight-related topics as well. It's a fun place. Check it out. I'd say check it out. It's a really fun place to be. But that is one of the best ways to support us here at NSF, as I said. But any support does not have to be monetary. It can be some of the most effective support that you could grant us here at NSF is simply liking our videos and liking our streams and just hitting that subscribe button for our YouTube channel. So that means a lot for us anyway. So thank you very much, everyone, for coming to hang out this morning, and those who have been with us for a long time to come. Okay, question here from 98 Central. Are the orbital shells claimed, or can anyone launch to that altitude or inclination? Ooh. D, you want to handle that one?
That's a really good question. So I'm not actually sure the specifics, so I'm not going to speculate it out. But I know that SpaceX obviously has this planned out in advance with the FCC, and they have the planned orbital shells. And there's a lot of working cooperation that goes into avoiding conflict between different companies and countries with satellites. But as far as the specifics, I'm not an expert there.
Cody, anything to pitch in there?
So I believe that Group 5 and Group 6 do share similar orbital altitudes, right? But they are different groups. So the distinction between groups and shells, it's always been super confusing there. So not necessarily sure either whether they can just share shells there or not.
Yeah, I think there are fine lines that you kind of have to dance around once you start getting above the Kármán line, because space is at the moment an international domain, and anyone can access it at any time they want, and any spacecraft up there, technically, if you want to put it like maritime, is in international waters. So I don't believe there are any supposed quote unquote claimed orbital shells or altitudes or specific flight paths, but it is an international domain up there, and it is anyone's game if you want to go up there. Now, if you want to launch a constellation like a Starlink rival or just a larger satellite into an orbit that is decently populated with other satellites, it would probably be in everyone's best interest to communicate that with anyone who's up there in order to decrease the chances of any satellites coming together or just any interference up there between any payloads. So it is international. It's basically international waters up there, and anyone can fly, but I would not recommend it unless you have the proper support of your spacecraft.
Yeah, I think another point to point out there is it is super important to coordinate all these different orbital altitudes, especially when we get these super large constellations of thousands of satellites. As Kessler syndrome starts to become a potential issue. Luckily, these being so low altitude satellites, that wouldn't be a massive issue, but it's certainly something that has to be very carefully coordinated to prevent some sort of runaway effect there.
Yeah, I mean, there already is somewhat of an issue of space junk up there that is just either dead satellites or satellite debris or rocket debris from very early flights from many years ago that is just floating around up there unchecked and without their own abilities to deorbit themselves or avoid contact with others. Thankfully, a majority of space junk is tracked, but space junk has to be above a certain size in order for it to be tracked on the ground. And the horrifying part is we can't track all of it because some of it is just too small. So beyond a certain point, we can't track it, but we do have an idea of where the larger and likely more issue-prone pieces of space junk are and how we can hopefully avoid them. There have been a few close calls with both the International Space Station and other spacecraft in recent years, but hopefully that issue will decrease over time as satellites nowadays, more often than not, at least here in the US, and I think also in Europe as well, the satellites need to have their own way of deorbiting themselves so they don't become a piece of uncontrolled space junk, because that's not what anybody wants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I really like the phrase, we got to become better space stewards, right? We got to take care of the orbital environment around Earth to ensure that in the future we can always maintain access to space. Absolutely.
Great question there. Great question. Before we hit the timeline, because we are coming up on a pretty good milestone. Question here from Saduzmani. At NASA Spaceflight, once Starship reaches orbit, will SpaceX only launch V3 satellites from that point on, or would they still be launching some older versions for a while along with V3? The plan right now is that the current Starship V2, the full-size V2 satellites, are what are going to be launched first on Starship. The V2 minis are what are being flown on Falcon 9, like tonight. Falcon 9 is what launches the Group 6. Pardon me. They launched the Starlink V2 minis both in their own shell, mostly Group 6, because that is only V2 minis as of now. But they also launched into the Group 12 shell, which is a mix of the V2 minis and also the direct-to-cell satellites. We often see that with the Group 12 shells, but tonight is a Group 6 shell, so it is only V2 mini satellites. So once Starship comes online, the first payloads that SpaceX wants to fly are those full-size Starlink V2 satellites, as they are much too big and much too heavy to be usefully flown on Falcon 9 or Falcon Heavy. So that is that is the first step in bringing Starship to a commercially viable position. And they're hoping to do that at some point this year, but of course they have to reach orbit first. While Starship has come very close, and it's arguably everyone loves to dog on Starship for they haven't actually reached orbit. They've had the propellant on board, and they could have reached an orbital altitude, a fully orbital altitude. But just as a reminder, those flight paths were left purposefully suborbital. That in the event if they lost control or comms with the Starship spacecraft, that they at least knew where it was going to come down, and it was not going to affect anyone on land. So, but the first step, as we've said earlier, is getting those Starship the full-size V2 Starlink satellites up in an orbit. So, hopefully that is to come soon. Okay. We are quickly coming up. We just crossed the T-minus 40-minute mark, and we are coming up on a pretty big milestone in the countdown. Cody, would you mind giving us a walkthrough of what to expect in the coming minutes?
Yeah, sure. So timeline-wise, in about a minute here, we're going to hear launch director verify go for propellant load. So the Falcon 9 will begin loading propellant onto the vehicle. And then at T-minus 35 minutes, we'll begin to see the RP-1 get loaded on to the both first and second stage there. As well as at 35 minutes, we will see stage 1 LOX load begin. And we'll start to see the frost actually accumulate there as the super chilled liquid oxygen gets loaded onto the ship. Sorry, not ship. Sorry, I'm too used to Starship there. Falcon. And Starship doesn't even use LOX. Or, well, no, it does. Sorry. 2 a.m. Starlink, whatever.
It's an early morning, folks. It's a very early morning. We're all still either waking up or trying to stay awake.
Mm-hmm. And then at T-minus 20 minutes, 20 seconds, we'll see that famous vent. What that's doing is clearing the lines on the strong back to ensure that when we begin LOX loading on that second stage, that all the lines are clear. They're conditioned for the super chilled liquid oxygen there. And then we'll see at T-minus 16 minutes, stage 2 LOX load will begin, and we'll start to see frost accumulating on that second stage. A good sign that we'll be going towards launch there. At T-minus 6 minutes, yes. Yeah. So at T-minus 7 minutes, we'll begin to see chill down there on the engine bells. And at T-minus 6 minutes, the strong back will retract about 1.8 degrees there. So as we get further along, we'll begin to see more of those events happen.
Indeed. And at this point, we have crossed the T-minus 38-minute mark. So either the launch director has pulled go or no go for prop loads. So everybody keep your eyes on the bottom of the transporter erector and also the bottom of Falcon 9's first stage as we are looking out for frost, hopefully in the next 5 to 6 minutes, as prop load will begin in just under 2 minutes. Yeah, it is a beautiful night here at the KSC. The cloud cover it's gone back and forth. Before we even got here to get ready for stream, Actually, a decent. It was very isolated, but there was a pretty good storm cell that came through KSC and got everything pretty wet, and actually got an alert that the KSC was in a phase 1 lightning warning, which we haven't seen in quite a while. But that is a sign, I think, of the changing weather patterns here in Florida, because as we have said before, the weather at this time of year, at least so far in 2025, has been too good. Those of you who are either familiar or those who are local to Central Florida know that in the late spring and summer months, the weather patterns here in Florida can be rather predictable in the afternoons, as between 3 and 5 p.m. almost every single day, we will get a ton of rain and storms. And normally that changes happen by this point, and we're already in May, and it hasn't, at least yet. But the forecast for today, or the rest of today, after the launch window, thankfully, is calling for rain, and it is also calling for rain on Monday as well as later in the week. So our luck might just be running out when it comes to the great weather that we have had here recently. But the weather for today's window is best at the opening of the window, so hopefully we can get Falcon 9 off the ground in just over 35 minutes, and we are about to cross the point where they are about to begin prop load on Falcon 9's first stage and second stage with RP1. All right, so, another good question here from 98 Central. Very observant. So at NASASpaceflight, did SpaceX stop using that C-ring at the bottom of the engine bell on stage 2? Yes, they did. So I believe, I can't remember exactly when it was or what mission it was. I think it was one of the polar launches heading kind of by the Bahamas. I believe there was a concern from local governments that Falcon 9 was flying over, that the C-ring coming off of the C-ring coming off of the MVAC nozzle would pose as a threat to come down on either livestock or people in their areas. And there is a decent claim to concern there, because that is uncontrolled debris at that point. But to this point, there has been no real reports, as far as we are aware, of that becoming an issue. But nonetheless, they wanted that removed and done away with. But SpaceX was really pressured to do that, and they tried it on a certain mission, and it turns out they actually don't need that C-ring anymore to support the MVAC nozzle. So they have done away with that, which means less parts on the upper stage, less weight, less complexity, and it saves, I presume, a decent amount of time in manufacturing. So they have, and it must be over a year ago now. I think it's been about a year and a half since they stopped using that C or support ring on the MVAC nozzle. But very great question, very observant. Okay, so at this point, T-minus 33 minutes, and as we stated earlier, keep your eyes out on the first stage for a sign of prop load. But also, we mentioned how the payload tonight, they are flying 29 Starlink V2 mini satellites, and that is a new record for a Falcon 9 in terms of Starlink V2 capabilities to orbit. This is the first time that a Falcon 9 has carried 29 V2 mini satellites. There have been 3 previous missions as of recent, and by recent I mean Starlink 672, 674, and 680, which have all carried 28, which was then a record, and previously it was 27 and 26. And usually the norm, at least at the beginning of 2025, was carrying anywhere from 22 to 23, at least here from Florida. I can't remember who it was, but there was a SpaceXer that posted on X that they had the goal of reaching the mark of carrying 29 V2 mini satellites to orbit this year. But we aren't even halfway through May yet. Like, May just started, and I guess we hadn't expected it to be achieved so quickly. I mean, hopefully it'll be achieved tonight. But Starlink, just as a reminder, Starlink payloads tend to be some of the heaviest that SpaceX allows Falcon 9 to carry, and that is why they have been able to gather so much more data and get more performance out of Falcon 9's first stage over the last year and a half. For reference, Falcon 9 can carry roughly up to 1,800 or 18,500 kilos to LEO, while targeting a drone ship recovery of the first stage booster, just like tonight's mission. And actually, thanks to D's view here, we can actually see a bit of frost building on the bottom of the Falcon 9's LOX tank. So Wow. We are now committed to the opening of tonight's launch window since they are now loading propellant. Actually, before I go on with the payload mess, Cody, since they have begun propellant load now with Falcon 9, why are they now stuck with that window opening T0?
Yeah, so with Falcon 9, they do very late loads on their vehicle, right? So as soon as they start loading, they're ready to go. That helps reduce the amount of waste as the vehicle is sitting there on the pad. And so to recycle the launch, the window, they would take a lot of those consumables. I was trying to think of the word there. Consumables is what it's called there. So yeah, it all has to do with how Falcon 9 loads its propellants here. It's kind of late load capability to ensure that it has the most efficient loading profile there. And then how they're able to recycle those propellants.
Yep. So at this point, they are either going to launch at 4:54 a.m. this morning, or they are going to wait until at least tomorrow. So hopefully it's the former. But as I was saying earlier, Falcon 9 can usually carry up to about 18,500 kilos of payload to low Earth orbit while targeting a drone ship recovery of the first stage booster, just like tonight's mission. Falcon 9, the Block 5 variant of the Falcon 9 may be the final iteration of Falcon 9 on paper, but to this point, SpaceX has continued to tweak and tune it through its now, I think it's 7 years of service to extract more performance specifically from the 9 Merlin 1D engines on the first stage in order to increase its payload capacity and propellant margins for recovery. A key example of this is the ability to now bring boosters back to LZ-1 and LZ-2 for ISS crew missions like Axiom missions or NASA crew missions. And that began with Crew 7, whereas previously they were targeted drone ship landings with a partial boost back burn. And they were able to achieve this through the data collected from all of these ever so abundant Starlink missions by trying new parameters here and there. But the specifics of those we aren't exactly privy to, unfortunately. But at this point, the results speak for themselves. And Falcon 9 overall, through all of its blocks and variations, has a 99.3% success rate through its 469 flights, 254 of which have been dedicated to the Starlink constellations, all of which, mind you, have been launched on the Block 5 variant. So SpaceX has had a lot of data and flights to toy with and tweak, and obviously the results speak for themselves, as we've just said. And tonight will be another step forward in bringing more payload to low Earth orbit for Falcon 9.
Yeah, I think that's one of the advantages that Falcon 9 and reuse in general just has over some other vehicles, right? Being able to bring back a vehicle and have such a high launch cadence allows for you to just tweak the vehicle ever so much. I really wish that other vehicles like the shuttle were able to do these kind of tiny optimizations that eventually lead to these huge benefits, like being able to load 29 Starlinks on here, or do the RTLSs for those crew ISS missions. So it's really cool to see just those tiny little optimizations go so far because of the high rate of launch that Falcon 9 is able to get.
I mean, to be fair, it did. Like, shuttle launching in 1981 wasn't exactly the same as shuttle flying in 2011.
Right.
So
Yes.
I think, yeah. So I think it's safe to say that the space shuttle, in terms of its solid rocket boosters, the tank, and also the orbiter itself, has gone through a pretty good evolution. But I get what you mean, Cody. I do.
Right.
And we don't exactly have any specific numbers on how much these Starlink V2 mini satellites weigh. But they honestly, because SpaceX does target a drone ship recovery for these missions, they have to be very close to that 18,500 kilo payload mass limit, as far as we are aware. I mean, they are pushing the limits of what Falcon 9 can carry with these missions. And so, just like a booster flying more than 26, 27 times now, we are in a bit of unknown territory in terms of what it can do. So it'll be really interesting to see what they're able to pull out of tonight's flight. So fingers crossed it goes well. But Falcon 9 go ahead, Cody. Sorry.
I also think it's really interesting that because this is a Starlink mission, right? And SpaceX is owns Starlink, right? They can do a lot of optimization on either end, right? Because we always talk about the Falcon 9 optimization, but I'm sure through so many Starlinks being produced that they've also optimized weight on those payloads. So being able to work so closely with the people who actually manufacture these, I'm sure is what's able to fully bring another Starlink on there. Just a combination of both those little optimizations.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, just over T-minus 26 minutes and counting here, folks. We are getting pretty close. I mean, we are coming up to the glorious T-minus 20 minute, and I think at pad A it's like T-minus 20 minute and 30 second vet, not T-minus 20 minute 20 second. But we will get to that in a minute. Well, actually in about 5 minutes. But want to hit a question from Jake YT. Actually, a pretty deep thought experiment. What year do you think we will likely see the first crewed launch of Starship? And I think I will go around the horn on this one. And D, I think I'll start with you. When do you think we could possibly see a crewed Starlink or crewed Starship flight?
That's a really good question, and I mean it'll be a lot of speculation. I want to stay hopeful and say I think definitely before the 2030s. I don't know if I see it before end of 27, 28. I'm not sure. It's there's a lot to happen to build the confidence and to figure out all those crew systems. So we'll have to wait and see. They still have a long way to go.
They do. Cody, what do you think?
I'm a little bit more doubtful, and I think that they might be creating this in the early 2030s. The reasoning behind my thinking there is that Starship's so radically different from many other crew-rated spacecraft, right? It's not a capsule. And so I think that there are a lot of unknown unknowns that you need to work out there before you ever put a person on Starship, right? So the development's going to probably take a lot longer to actually get that crew rating and SpaceX to be confident in the ability of Starship to safely handle crew.
Yeah, I think that seems a little pessimistic. I'm not going to lie, because obviously SpaceX has goals of launching Starship to Mars, granted uncrewed, next year in 2026 for that window, and then the next window after that isn't until 2029. So time will tell if SpaceX will launch either private crew missions to destinations that they deem fit before then. But SpaceX wants to get the Starship program up and operational as quick as possible to get to that milestone as fast as possible. But it's worth keeping in mind that the Starship program right now, despite everything that we're seeing, it's still in its infancy. So there is a long way to go for the Starship program in terms of where the hardware is at right now. We're still in the version 1 or the V1 version of the Super Heavy booster, remember? And then we are probably going from that to right to the V3 variant, of which we don't exactly know details of, but that's coming by the end of this year. And we are already in the V2 variant of Starship, of the actual ship itself. The V1 ship ceased operations at the very end of last year, and that one only flew 6 times, but they seem to get that one down, but obviously they're having issues with the current V2 variant. They have a long way to go, and I'm sure that they are well underway to implement solutions to the woes that V2 is currently facing. Obviously, everyone saw the rather dramatic static fire that Ship 35 had at Massey's just a few days ago. We're not quite sure how that plays into the targeted launch date. The targeted launch date that SpaceX has in mind, we don't know what that is. But we were hoping at some point, maybe mid or end of May. We're not quite sure if they're going to have to replace a ton of hardware or if it's a quick-ish fix. We'll have to wait and see. But to answer the question, to stop being so long-winded about it, I would like to see Starship crew rated in around 2027, 2028. So right about where you are, D. It would serve SpaceX immensely, I'm sure, if they could do that. But remember, it took SpaceX, what was it, 10 years to crew rate Falcon 9. Granted, that was SpaceX's first rocket, and they have implemented a lot of the experience and knowledge that they've had with Falcon 9 into Starship and where it is now, and they have caught a booster within 5 flights, and they're going to refly a booster within 9. That is far beyond what SpaceX was able to achieve with the Falcon 9 program. So fingers crossed it goes quickly. So time will tell, as we often say. Okay, we are nearing the T-minus 20 minute and 30-ish second vent as it is here at LC39A. D, would you mind walking us through what that vent stands for, as we should be seeing it in just a few seconds?
Absolutely. So the T-minus 20-minute vent, the best vent as we like to call it, is preparing to load liquid oxygen onto the second stage of the rocket. So, of course, they've been fueling up the first stage with liquid oxygen already, in addition to the RP-1, and they've been loading up the RP-1 for the second stage. But at this point, they're preparing to load liquid oxygen, which is a very, very cold propellant. And so ahead of that, they're going to start flowing that liquid oxygen through the lines to cool everything off and get it ready. Now, that vent will stop at around T-minus 16 minutes. That's when they actually start fueling. And just right there, we see
there
the
she
start
blows.
of the vent.
And I guess I was a little bit off on that timing. I guess it is still T-minus 20 minutes, 20 seconds. I swear, on a mission that just launched from there, it was a little bit sooner than what we've seen over at Slick 40. But regardless, I will take that L. And but we are venting from the TE, so they are pressing ahead for the current T0 of 4:54 a.m. local time here in Florida. Ooh, another question that I want to get to before we run out of time later, and I want to go around the horn on this one. Daniel Weilert asking, speaking of crew rating, do you think SpaceX would ever get to the Falcon Heavy and crew rate that? Ooh. Cody, I'm going to start with you on that one. That is a very interesting thought experiment.
I think it really depends on a lot of factors there, right? The capabilities of 39A, right, to actually have crew on a Falcon Heavy, that's a little unknown, right? So you might have a lot of ground support infrastructure changes there. And also just the use case of it, right? I think it really depends on what the future of Artemis is going to be, and potentially what capabilities NASA would need for that. And yeah, I think it really depends on the timeline of Starship as well. Because if you crew rate Starship, there's not a real reason to crew rate Falcon Heavy, in my opinion. It just seems like a stopgap measure there until you can crew rate Starship or any other kind of crew rated vehicle there. So I would be unsure of a future where Falcon Heavy is crew rated. I don't think that would be happening.
Yeah, it doesn't really make a lot of sense once you start digging into the details, in that Falcon Heavy is just a lot more complicated than Falcon 9, and is a lot more violent of a launch vehicle than Falcon 9, having 3 times the thrust and 3 times the engines to manage, and along with all of the additional vibrations and loads that the core stage faces in that regard. D, what do you think?
You know, if you had asked me this like 4 years ago, I'd be like, yeah, I think they might do that. But at this point, why bother? They're getting that might sound harsh, but they have flexible performance such that with Falcon 9 already, they're able to do return to launch site missions. So what is there between the performance of a drone ship landing or an expended Falcon 9 and then when Starship comes online? I don't really see anywhere that Dragon, well, assuming Dragon, of course, but I don't see anywhere that Falcon Heavy is really able to fill that gap. SpaceX is really, really focused on the full reusability of Starship.
Yeah, I think at one point in time they were all gung ho about getting Falcon Heavy rapidly operational, but I think that focus has well and truly shifted to the Starship program. As cool as it would be to see Dragon on top of a Falcon Heavy launch vehicle, that was the original plan, I think, for a Red Dragon mission at some point that SpaceX had in mind. But then Starship came on board, and this idea went to the very back of the room and is probably never going to see the light of day again. Unfortunately, because again, that would be a rad design. Although the ISS deorbit vehicle that is Dragon derived because of its size and potential mass, they might have to launch it on Falcon Heavy, so we'll have to wait and see. Or maybe that'll just be a fully expended Falcon 9 and just ruin that whole thought process. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
They
All right,
also might want
Cody.
to crew rate it for my favorite vehicle, the Brighton stack of you put Orion on
Oh,
Falcon Heavy.
No.
It's so impractical, but I love it. It looks
No.
amazing.
I mean, to each their own. To each their own. I mean, looks are subjective. I'll give you that. But I'm going to knock out some more support really quick. Christopher Campbell coming back and upgrading to a Capcom membership. I thought you were already a Capcom member, Chris. I thought you were. But thank you very much for coming back. Janice McGrath becoming a Pad Rat member. Bideford, another name that we see here very often, gifting a Red Team membership, or five Red Team memberships to 5 lucky viewers. Bideford, you are so generous, and we love seeing you around, so thank you very much. Eric Spittle gifting 1 Red Team membership to a lucky viewer, as well as, Johnny, I'll just say Johnny, gifting another Red Team membership to a lucky viewer. Y'all are so generous. If you guys received a membership in chat, please feel free to thank all of those individuals. It really means a lot to all of us. I'm sure a lot to you. And if you enjoyed those benefits that you are getting from those memberships, feel free to renew yourself and come back. We love to see you around. Okay, actually, D, for this one, really quickly, I want to toss this one to you. It's a camera-related question from 98 Central. Any advice on proper exposure settings to achieve a streak shot on night launches?
Ooh, that's a good question. It will depend a bit on exactly how close you are, but in general, some settings I've used before, you actually want to stop down the aperture more than you might expect. You a lot of times will go down to f20, depending on the brightness, depending on foreground, depending on if you want star trails in there. With that, you'll be basically at your base ISO, whether that's 100, 160, and then you'll want to basically also leave the shutter open for way longer than you expect. If you decide to open the aperture up a bit, you can see some cool effects with staging farther in, and if you're really leave it open for a long time, you can sometimes see the re-entry burn even on drone ship landings. So Max, you do more stills than I do. So that's a sort of safe bet for your settings, but do you have any recommendations you would share?
Sure. So usually, just for reference, here at the press site, from 39A, we're about 3.5 miles. From Slick 40, we're about 4.5. So, but either way, I usually close my aperture down to about f22 and expose for roughly 6 to 8 minutes. It doesn't really make a difference to your exposure if you expose for 6 or expose at 8 for 8, I should say. But if you're farther away, like toward the Max Brewer Bridge, or somewhere up north, like New Smyrna, or somewhere south, like Cocoa Beach or Satellite Beach, I would probably keep your aperture around, anywhere from, depending on how good your sensor is, anywhere from like f11 to f13, maybe f14 if you want to go super dark. And then expose again anywhere from 4, 5, 6 or more minutes, depending on how much of the arch you want to get or how much action you want to get. So that would be where I would recommend you starting out from. But if you do manage to get one, please feel free to post it and tag us on X or wherever you want to post it, because we would love to see it. Streak shots are always fun. They're some of the most satisfying images to get. Like if you get it right, it's super satisfying.
Oh, I want to hop in here with one fair warning, because most people aren't shooting at f22
Yes.
all that often.
Yes.
Especially at night with a really bright light shining in. Check if
I know
your
where this is
sensor's
going.
clean.
Yep, I knew that was coming.
It will show Every little speck of dust that has made its way into your lens, onto your sensor. If you don't know how to clean a sensor, you don't feel comfortable, there are plenty of places to go and learn the proper techniques. I'm not going to start spouting those off now, but you do need a clean sensor, or you need to spend a lot of time editing out dark spots.
We are speaking from experience, aren't we, D?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Thank you for that warning, because I don't want it would be a tragedy if someone were to get like a really great streak shot at a super high aperture and then wonder why are there so many spots on my image that looks terrible. And it doesn't look great, but that's what the clone tool is used for in Lightroom or Photoshop, whatever you like to use. But yes, heed that warning. A clean sensor is a happy sensor. But actually, wow, we are almost at T-minus 11 minutes already. See, we say this all the time. Whenever we get into prop load, for example, or even the T-minus 20-minute vent, the time left in the countdown just erodes away at a very rapid pace. And here we are, just under T-minus 11 minutes now. For those of you who are just watching, welcome. We are currently stationed at the Kennedy Space Center for the Starlink 6-84 mission launching from LC-39A in just over 10 minutes time. It is a record payload for Starlink of 29 Starlink V2 minis heading off to orbit in the southeastern direction of 43 degrees. Booster will be landing on the drone ship, a short fall of gravitas just north of the Bahamas. So it is an excellent, well, I was about to say night again, but technically it is morning now. It's just before 5 a.m. local time here on the East Coast. So assuming you're awake, you are in for a show. Yeah, it's going to be a good one. I've seen this question come up sometimes at this time of the morning, especially. For those of you asking if we are going to have a jellyfish effect this morning, unfortunately, we are too far before sunrise for that to happen. The ideal window to launch and have a jellyfish effect in your exhaust is around for sunrise, anywhere from T-minus, or not T-minus, but about 45 minutes to about 20 minutes before sunrise. That is when that effect is the most pronounced. But speaking of pronounced imagery, over at our store at shop.nasaspaceflight.com, there are a variety of prints available both for paper and metal from myself and other photographers here at NSF, available to go on your wall at any point. We are not short of any variety of, especially from Falcon 9. We have been absolutely blessed with an incredible cadence and thus incredible opportunities to get great imagery of Falcon 9 getting itself off the ground and getting into orbit. Some of these are just wicked cool, especially some of these composites from Pauline over at Vandenberg, because their LZ is so close to the freaking launch pad, and I'm really jealous of it. But feel free to check that out at any point that you possibly can. These belong on your wall. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. They are of such good quality, and these images are just some of our favorites here. This one in particular, I actually, I think this is actually mine. I think this was a Starlink mission from early or mid last year, at some point when the wind was blowing in just the right direction, and it was also a 39A launch. So Falcon 9 lined up with the American flag, proud dead center, right when the conditions were appropriate. So check that out. Check out others. And we also have a bunch of merch that everyone would enjoy, but all of that and more at shop.nasaspaceflight.com. All right, just over T-minus 8 minutes now and counting. Time is ticking down rather rapidly. So we'll hit a couple more questions here. I saw this one from GeoFS asking, when could the Crew 11 mission be to the ISS? I believe NASA said that was in July. Cody or D? I think that was in July, right?
Yeah, I concur with that.
That is in July? Okay. Roger that. Daniel Weilert asking, since Falcon 9 will hit launching 29 Starlinks, how many do you think Starship will? Many. I don't think SpaceX has said specifically how many satellites they want to launch at one time on Starship. I know it's a lot because that PES dispenser system they have for deploying the V2 mini satellites is rather extreme and rather large. And the V2 minis, or the V2 minis, the full-size V2 satellites fit in there snug as a bug in a rug. So many, I would imagine over 20, somewhere between 20 and 30. Oh wow, Alex in the back channel actually just saying, from what we've seen, it looks like the Pez dispenser system on Block 2 can fit up to 54 satellites. Holy crap, that's a lot of satellites. That's way more than Falcon 9 can currently carry with the V2 minis. They used to launch around 60 with the old V1 Starlink satellites, but those days are long gone. But perhaps Block 3 can fit even more. But thank you very much for your question, Daniel. I hope that was insightful. But D, we are approaching the T-minus 6.5 minute mark. Do we have to let you go?
Yeah, it is about that time. I've got a few last minute things to get ready, and we should have an excellent view of tonight's launch. I tried something a bit different for this one, swapping around cameras, so hopefully we have a nice view well into flight. So I will see you all on the other side of this.
See you on the other side. Hope it goes well. I'm eager to see how this looks. I guess stick around for replays afterwards, and we'll all get hopefully a good look. Cody, how you feeling?
I'm feeling good. We're
What
in
are the vibes
fueling
like?
here. The vibes are great. I have all my energy back once we're getting into the nearly T-minus 5 minute section here in the count. We got a frosty rocket there. I'm happy.
As are we here at the Kennedy Space Center. Yeah, a Starlink mission from LC-39A is always a treat. The views we have to say are much more. They are just. It's just better. Views over to Pad A are just so much better compared to 40. It also makes setup a lot easier for D and I here at the Kennedy Space Center, because the view over at 40, we are a bit farther away and we have to hike out all the way to the press site lawn to get a good view. And it is worth it. It is great, but 39A, especially from here, like, come on. It's not, come on. It's just better. It's just better. Ooh, quick question here from the Amiga clone. A moon jelly? Well, the moon is unfortunately down now here on the east coast of Florida, so I don't think so. But D's camera is phenomenal in catching the bit of... It looks like a jelly almost, but just the way the MVAX exhaust glows for the first minute or two after stage separation, it's like this purplish blue hue. D's camera is very good at picking it up. So we will see that, but I don't think any jellyfish tonight, at least from the moon. Also, not from the sun either. But that being said, the exhaust from both the first stage and the upper stage, or stage 2, I should say, while we won't get a direct jellyfish effect, the exhaust particulates will be lingering in the atmosphere. And because we are in relative close proximity to sunrise, if you are on the east coast of Florida and you look eastward, about 30 to 40 minutes before sunrise, you will begin to see those exhaust particulates glowing in the sky, a bit like noctilucent clouds. It is a very beautiful sight, I have to say. But the timing has to be right in terms of where they are in the atmosphere and if they are still in close proximity to each other, in order to get those prime glowing views. But it is very vibrant, and you cannot miss it if you look directly to the east, assuming weather is playing ball and you are not completely clouded over, which hopefully you are not. And I'm looking above us now. Oh, darn. There does look to be a little bit of a cloud layer over us now. I'm trying to see some stars through it, and actually I can if I look behind me. But looking around, it looks like we have more clouds coming into the area. But it is also very humid tonight, so the audio should be spectacular. All right, one more quick question. We are just under 3 minutes from launch. Oh, actually, are we getting too close, Cody? What do you think? Should I save it?
Let's save it for a little bit here as we come up on we're pretty close to final launch preparations. We are just sitting outside of 2 minutes 30 seconds here. So
indeed we are. And actually we forgot to hit, this is my fault. We forgot to hit the timeline.
Lock load is complete.
There we go. Lock load is complete on the first stage. We should be hearing callouts additionally momentarily. But at T-minus 7 minutes, the Falcon 9 began engine chill for all 9 Merlin 1Ds on the first stage. The reason why you want that is you don't want any thermal shocking of cryogenic or super cold propellants flowing through any of your your plumbing or your pumps, because that would cause flash gassing or potentially because of the temperature differential, cracking in your plumbing, and that's not what you want. That would make for a bad day for a lot of people. So that is well underway. Should be wrapping up in just a few moments. In less than 1 minute from now, the onboard computer from Falcon 9 should initiate the final command to begin final pre-launch checks. And we will hear that from the launch director by the call Falcon 9 is in startup. Followed by that at around T-minus 45 seconds. And stage 2 lock slow complete. That's what we want to hear. The SpaceX launch director will verify they are go for launch at T-minus 45 seconds. There is a bit of a delay from the SpaceX stream to ours, so it will appear to be a little bit late on that call, but that's just how it goes. At T-minus 3 seconds, we should see a bright green flash of TTEB flowing through the Merlin 1Ds, spinning up the pumps and initiating ignition of all 9 engines. And of course, at T0, we should see liftoff of Falcon 9. There we go. T-minus 1 minute now, folks. Cody,
All
I'm going to excuse myself for a few seconds to turn on my camera. Cody, take it away.
All right. So as we hit 1 minute here, we are going to press for flight here, and that's both going to be used to maintain those tank pressures for the cryogenics, as well as a little bit of structural strength there on the Falcon 9 tanks. And as we just heard there, we're in startup. So the batteries on the vehicle are internal, and the flight computer is now taking control of the launch sequence there. Going up on 22 seconds before launch here.
It's getting close here, folks. Here we go. Camera is firing. We are hoping to get a good liftoff here in just over 10 seconds from now. T-minus 10. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh. And we do not have ignition. Oh, yes we do. Bit of a delay there, and we have liftoff. Go Falcon, go Starlink. Stay tuned for the audio as it is incoming. T plus 1 minute and 20 seconds into flight. If you can hear me over the crackle, Falcon 9 should be well into supersonic territory at this point. We should be approaching max Q. Max Q being the point in flight where the aerodynamic loads on Falcon 9 structure reach their peak. Falcon 9 heading downrange. T with a great track. And already at the altitude that Falcon 9 is currently at, you can already begin to see the exhaust expansion from all 9 Merlin 1Ds as the ambient pressure from around the engines begins to drop, thus allowing the exhaust to expand outward and upward. Falcon 9's exhaust should also be changing color from an orange to a red and then on to a blue as we near MECO just a few seconds after that. Coming up rather quick. Great view here from Falcon 9's onboard camera. And you can see in real time the exhaust beginning to expand rapidly, actually. Wow. Just crossing 50 kilometers in altitude. Haul in the mail now just before MECO. Coming up in just a few seconds. Yeah, Miko confirmed. And a good stage separation there from the first stage and the second stage. Should be seeing, ooh, and there it is. Good ignition of the MVAC engine on Falcon 9's second stage. You can see it from the interstage there. Wow.
Wow, look at that shot. The grid fins just reflecting that light from the upper stage there.
Wow, staging speed over 8,000 kilometers an hour. That's, geez. Had a great view there. The glow from the MVAC nozzle, or the glow from the MVAC engine still radiating off of the titanium grid fins, and there we go. Successful fairing separation. Good golly, Miss Molly. It is almost 5 a.m. here. Words are tough. But there you go. As I was saying earlier, D's camera is just picking up on the exhaust expansion coming out of the MVAC nozzle. The reason why that occurs, and the reason why the nozzle is so large on Falcon 9's second stage, is the larger nozzle you have for a vacuum optimized
trajectories.
Great call outs there. Essentially, you want the largest nozzle possible on your upper stage, as you are now operating in a near or at vacuum environment. So what that nozzle allows your exhaust to do is accelerate and expand outwards in a controlled direction before it leaves the nozzle and just expands outwards and loses all of its performance. So in theory, you want as long and large of a nozzle as possible, but obviously you get to a point where weight and performance just do not match up, and you are limited to how big of a nozzle you can carry. But glowing away there as it ascends in flight and rapidly increasing its velocity, that is incredible. I think we had a track from D, but I'm not surprised if we lost it in the clouds tonight, because there are a lot of them above KSC and going down range. It's now over 11,000 kilometers an hour in velocity on the upper stage.
So as we get into entry burn kind of territory, one thing to look out for is as Falcon 9's first stage is going through the entry burn and then into entry, look for the plasma buildup on those titanium grid fins. It's so beautiful to just see the glow on those grid fins as Falcon 9 goes through entry there.
Indeed, it's worth noting that the first stage as well has also passed its apogee in flight, which is the point of its highest altitude achieved, and it is now on its way back down and aiming towards the drone ship, a shortfall of gravitas, stationed just north of the Bahamas. And that altitude rapidly shedding off here, still descending at over 7,000 kilometers an hour. And it is accelerating in velocity because gravity is pulling it back down towards the surface of the Earth, and there is no atmosphere in the way to slow it down. The purpose of this re-entry burn is to slow Falcon 9 down to a velocity of which it can pass through the atmosphere with... There we go, good call outs for FTS. That allows it to pass through the atmosphere without it ripping itself apart due to the velocity and peak heating. But approaching entry burn here in just a few seconds. There we go. Single engine. And now igniting two outers. You can see the plume changing shape. Velocity just absolutely tumbling. Back down to one engine and shut down.
Nominal trajectories.
And as Cody was saying, you should begin like right here. Falcon 9 is entering the atmosphere at such a velocity that plasma is building up on the titanium grid fins. That is okay. That is normal. We see that with every single flight. And that is what those grid fins are built to withstand as well. They are made from titanium. And I believe they are still the single largest titanium parts of any vehicle in the world, which is a remarkable feat. And now velocity beginning to shed off further as it falls into the deeper and denser parts of Earth's atmosphere. No need for engines at this point. It is using the drag from its fuselage and from its grid fins to slow it down. Actually, that light you were seeing on the left-hand side of your screen, that is likely the drone ship, a shortfall of gravitas awaiting its presence in here in just a few seconds. Now 7 kilometers in altitude, should be igniting its single center Merlin engine for the landing burn to slow it down for hopefully a good touchdown in just a few seconds. You can see ASOG so clearly. Wow.
Stage 1 landing burn.
There we go. Ignition. Grid fins doing work. You can see him trying to help orient the booster. Velocity shedding rapidly.
Deploy.
Great view of landing legs coming down, and
Stage 1 landing confirmed.
there we go. Successful landing of B-1078 on a shortfall of gravitas. Fantastic. And great views here as well from Falcon 9's upper stage. Mind you, now traveling at nearly 27,000 kilometers an hour, approaching second engine cutoff 1 or SECO 1. There is a SECO. Oh, and there we go. MVAC shutdown. SECO 1 is this initial shutdown, and then they will have second engine start 2 a bit later in flight to help circularize the orbit for these Starlink satellites. But that is well into the flight, and we are past live views at that point. So we will have to wait to hear from SpaceX about that progress. But in the meantime, we can celebrate B-1078, 20 flights under its belt, the 9th booster to reach the 20 flight milestone. Cody, how you feeling? How was it?
I mean, it's always great to see a Falcon 9 landing. They make it look so easy every time, hitting right on the bullseye. It's the size of a football field. The drone ship is the size of like a football field in the middle of the ocean, and you're trying to land this 22-story tall vehicle using atmospheric control and engines. It's just this massive problem that they make look so incredibly easy every time. So it's always a treat to see these landings go perfect.
They make it look easy, and in the end, they make it look routine. But as we saw on a number of occasions last year, spaceflight is anything but routine and easy. So that is a testament to all of the teams at SpaceX that make Falcon 9 do what it does and making it look absolutely seamless. Alex in the back channel also correcting me. That is 1078 is now the 11th booster to reach 20 flights, which is even crazier in itself. We're now past the 11 boosters now have reached the 20 flight milestone. And even just 2 or 3 years ago, 10 or 15 flights seemed like they're pushing the limits. Now we have a handful of boosters well above 20 flights now here on both coasts, both the East Coast and in Vandenberg. Wow. Incredible. You know, I had something that Cody, don't you just hate it whenever you had something to say, and then like right when you were going to say it, it just completely slips your mind? That just happened to me.
I've
that
had that
just
happen
happened to
so
me.
many times.
Yeah, it just happened to me, and maybe it'll come back in a minute. But until then, actually, we still have a decent amount of questions here that I want to get through while we can. Saad Usmani coming back with another question. Could Starship Flight 11 or 12 be from Pad B? I mean, to be honest, we don't know. We know that Pad B needs the V2 or V3 boosters, whichever SpaceX decides to name it, to fly, because that is what the orbital launch mount is designed for over at Pad B. It cannot accommodate the current V1 boosters, which use currently the orbital launch mount at Pad A. So we don't know exactly what flight that will be or when. SpaceX is aiming to, I think they have said, Q3, Q4 at some point, by the end of the year for sure. But they also want to launch from Florida by the end of the year. Also with a very similar designed orbital launch mount and also a V2 or V3 booster, whichever they name it. So time will tell if they can achieve that, but unsure on exact timing or what flight number that will be, but hopefully soon. You can see it, the transporter erector now at 39A, beginning to rise again as it catches the foot structure and before it is lowered back down to be rolled back into the hangar and ready for its next flight. Still venting away, as you can see. Still remnants of the liquid oxygen and the super chilled RP1 still coming out of those vents.
I think a often overlooked part of these launches is just how reliable the ground support infrastructure has to be for these launches. Not only does the booster have to be rapidly reusable, so does the flame trench, the transporter erector, the strongback. Everything in this has to go right. So it's always good to see those that reliability there.
100%. We have replays already? Holy. That was a fast poll, Carson. My goodness. And I also forgot to mention Carson in the beginning of the stream, but we can go past that for now. But yeah, we have replays already. It's okay, Carson. I'll talk about you later. But this is among the fastest I've ever seen replays pulled. Wow. And this is a view from one of our fleet cams in Port Canaveral at Rusty's, which is one of the restaurants right on the water in Port Canaveral. Great view of God, what is that? Which I can't remember which booster number that is on the left, but a great view to the north, as Port Canaveral is obviously south of the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station and the Kennedy Space Center. So looking north right now, you can see Falcon 9 rising, looking like an artificial sunrise, because that is just how RP-1 NLOX burn, and Falcon 9 has 9 engines running on them. So a very bright exhaust trail indeed left behind. Great view from the south. Port Canaveral is a great spot to watch a launch from, 100%. And another one, where's this camera coming from? I'm not quite sure yet. It's not in frame. KC camera. Okay, is this auto track, Carson? I don't think it's not tracking. So it's not auto track. But apparently that was also one of our KSC cameras here as well. Yeah, great. Oh, here we go. Another KSC cam. Dude, the views, I'm telling you, the views from KSC over to Pad A are just unmatched. Especially being here about maybe 25 or 30 feet off the ground here on the roof of the hut. The views are unmatched. That is incredible.
The glow off those clouds. I love it. I love these cams every time. It's so incredible.
100%. Golly. It's a very cliche saying, and we say it often, but guys, it doesn't get old. And we really hope that it doesn't get old for all of y'all as well. This is also one of our KSC robot cameras tracking off the launch pad now. Kevin or Carson, was this auto track? Or no? This is auto track. Fantastic. Camera and software tracking by itself. Passing through some clouds. And also worth noting that the sound was especially intense tonight, because as we get further into the late spring and summer months, the air is a lot thicker and a lot more humid here in Central Florida, especially here on the coast. But humid and thicker air carries sound waves a lot better than non-humid air, but we have plenty of humid air here in Florida, and Falcon 9 is one of the louder rockets anyway, so the sound was especially intense tonight. And again, it is always a treat to see Falcon 9 fly from LC-39A. Falcon 9 breaking into the clouds there. I think this is from one of D's cameras. Yep, tracking it right off the pad, it's got to be. Golly. So this is about how it looks to your naked eye. Maybe a little bit darker, but Falcon 9's exhaust is so bright. It's hard to understate. You have to see it with your own eyes, especially being this close. Oh, we have audio. Never gets old. Cody, I really hope that at some point soon that you're able to come down to Florida and watch one for yourself.
I've never been down there. I need to go down there.
You and I watched Flight 5 together, and that was very special.
Yes.
Very, very special. And I hate to say it, but Falcon is not going to top top Starship unless you're watching from like 10 feet away, which I don't recommend you do.
No, that'd be bad.
Yeah, probably. but I would still recommend coming down and watching as many as you can. It is such a treat here, especially with as often as they're flying now. It is incredible.
Oh yeah, it's on my bucket list because Flight 5 was my first rocket launch to see in person.
It's all downhill from there, buddy. it's all downhill from
Hey,
there.
you know what? To me, there's no hill. It's all a flat line of awesome. You know?
Well, it's all downhill from now, at least in terms of experience. Like Flight 5 was borderline unmatchable. I'm not sure what can top it apart from maybe ship catch.
Yes.
Hopefully soon, but they have to get V2 to Seco first. All right, folks. Well, you can see the transporter erector almost reaching its vertical position over at LC-39A once again. But before we go, really quick, I want to knock out some support. Sheriff Tracy gifting 5 Red Team memberships to 5 lucky viewers. Sheriff Tracy, you're a legend. Thank you very much. Chromatic gifting 1 Red Team membership. Eric Spittle with a $2 super chat. Lush foil, but for rockets, please. Not quite sure I get the reference. Cody, do you get the reference, or am I just uncultured?
You know, I might be a Zoomer, but I have no idea what that is. I'm sorry.
Might be a Zoomer. Oh my God. Okay. Well, apologies for not getting the reference there, Eric. But JC Davis also coming in with a $5 super chat. Anyone know who launches the longest vacuum? Ooh. I mean, the MVAC nozzle is pretty long, but also the RVAC is enormous. So
I was gonna say there's the expanding nozzle for that flew on Delta, right?
Yes, on the RL-10, correct. Yeah, but I don't know if that was. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not sure if that was longer. I'll have to ask someone who works on the ICPS, because that is still flying on the SLS rocket for at least 2 more flights. Well, for 2 more flights, no matter what. But the RL-10 is featured with that nozzle on the ICPS. So, actually, quick point also to point out here from Alex in the back channel. Tonight's launch broke the pad turnaround record for 39A. It usually and traditionally is turned around a lot slower than Slick 40, which is turned around very quickly by comparison, sometimes in under 3 days, if we have seen. But for them to turn around 39A in under 6 days, I think 5 days and 6 hours now, that is a very epic achievement for all the SpaceX teams involved. So we are just witnessing new milestones getting checked off every single day, folks. Just another day here on the Space Coast. And on that note, guys, I think it is time to begin wrapping coverage and play out with these incredible telescopic slow-mo footage. And speaking of D, thank you very much for coming on with us tonight and for all of your camera work.
Of course, it has been an absolute pleasure, and I will see you all next time.
Indeed. And also on the commentary with us tonight was Mr. Cody Utzler. Cody, thank you very much, man, for coming on.
Thank you. It's always an honor to be able to speak on these streams, and I can't wait for the next one.
As can't we. And as I said earlier, and I may have forgotten him again in the beginning of the show, but Carson was behind the scenes, pushing the buttons, pulling the levers, making the stream stuff do stream stuff, and making all the magic happen on stream for y'all's enjoyment. My name is Max Evans. I am a spaceflight photographer here at NSF, and I have been your host for this stream, and we will hopefully be seeing you again for the next one in hopefully just a few days. See you guys later.
And here we go.
We have liftoff. Propulsion continues to be nominal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good. Traveling up. Roger, Atlantic.
Water towers fly! Yes!
Echo down to nominal.
Fighting downside SPD off. Say again, SPD off. Off. It's orange!
R25! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage. What is it? Put that in the big bag, Eagle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
This methane will be igniting in the flare, correct?